Microsoft Copilot will change the way we all work, even if you don't use a Windows machine. That's right. The actual way business gets done, the way that we all work, the definition of work is going to change over the next week, but especially come this November. We're going to talk about that more today on Everyday AI. This is your daily live stream podcast and free daily newsletter, helping everyday people like me and you make sense of what's going on in the world of AI. There's a lot. There's a lot, even in the last couple of hours. So my name's Jordan Wilson. Thank you for joining. If you are live, thanks. Appreciate that. Get your questions in. Let's talk Microsoft Copilot. Let's talk the future of work. Let me know. Let me know what you guys want to know about Microsoft Copilot. I may not have all the answers right now live on the show, but don't worry. We'll get all the answers for you. Check it out in the free daily newsletter. All right. Let's talk about what's going on in the world of AI, because we have some actual breaking news that probably no one out there even knows yet, unless you are refreshing Twitter 5 minutes before the show. All right, but let's start at the top. So Anthropic is now entering the big leagues thanks to Amazon. Amazon is investing $4 billion. That's billions with a B. So Amazon's investing $4 billion in the AI startup Anthropic. Largely, if you don't know Anthropic, their large language model is Cloud 2. And it is one of the few models out there that does not use GPT, the GPT technology. So big companies, we've all seen it. They've all been kind of partnering up with Gen AI companies such as Microsoft with OpenAI. But Amazon's been kind of quiet, at least with multi-billion-dollar investments until now. So let's keep an eye on that. Next big piece of news, which obviously relates to today's show, but the initial rollout of Microsoft Copilot is coming tomorrow. So there's some differences between what's coming tomorrow and what's getting rolled out on November 1st. So we'll go over all that. But tomorrow starts the initial rollout of Microsoft Copilot with the Windows 11 update with more than 150 new smart features across Bing and Edge. All right. And here, last but not least, our third piece of news. And make sure you go to youreverydayai.com, sign up for the free daily newsletter. We're going to be going over these news pieces and so much more. But the third piece of news, ChatGPT and OpenAI just announced about 9 minutes ago some huge updates. So let's talk about these new updates to ChatGPT. So literally minutes ago, so I don't have all the details, but these new updates are bringing some multimodal capabilities to ChatGPT. So allowing everyone to speak with ChatGPT instead of type, and to have ChatGPT speak back to you instead of in text. Also, the ability, and the demo was on mobile, but the ability to upload photos and to speak with ChatGPT via photos. So instead of having to communicate something, the example that they showed in their promo video just launched a couple of minutes ago was fixing a bike. So, taking a photo of the bike, going back and forth with ChatGPT. ChatGPT recommends something. They take a close-up picture of the bike, so on and so forth. But yes, that big news from OpenAI. They're going to be rolling that out over the next couple of weeks. Also around the corner is the direct DALL-E 3 integration inside ChatGPT. So, wow. Like, what a way to start off. What a way to start off our Monday. But let's get back and talk to about Microsoft Copilot. That's the topic of today's show. But thank you all. Thank you all for joining. Val joining, saying good morning. Douglas, thank you for joining. Maybrit saying Microsoft is making it difficult to decide on new devices. Absolutely, Maybrit. So full disclosure, I just bought a Mac Mini. What was it? Saturday. Got it all set up. But I'm going to be buying a Windows PC, which I haven't used I mean, I was Microsoft certified as a teenager. I used to be a dork. I used to build computers. I'm still a dork. I don't build computers anymore, but I used to build PCs, but I haven't had one since, I bought my first PC with my paper route money when I was 13 years old. But I haven't used a PC in 20 years. But Maybrit, I will be buying a PC, especially before November 1st, to take advantage of everything that Microsoft is offering. Because the topic and what we're going to get into is it's going to change the way we all work. So thank you everyone for joining. Appreciate everyone joining. But get your comments in. Michael, like what Michael's saying, it's Fire Monday. Yeah, this is definitely a hot take Monday. So let's talk a little bit about Copilot and what it means for the future of work. What do you guys think? I want to know. I want to know from you all. I'm going to come with not hot takes. I actually did an episode kind of more on hot takes on Microsoft Copilot about a month ago. But I want this to be a discussion. But I also want to go over exactly what's happening. Okay. What's rolling out, what's not. There's been some confusion. Again, I don't have all the answers, but I even know, someone from Microsoft is probably listening or joining, but had some comments, which was very helpful even before the show started. So let's talk about this. I'm gonna throw up on my screen here. I'm not going to throw up on my screen, but I'm going to throw up a screen share here. But if you're listening on the podcast, don't worry, and you can always come back in the show notes. You can come watch this video. You can come back and ask questions. There should be a LinkedIn thread in the show notes if you are listening on the podcast. So don't worry. But I'm going to try to do my best to talk a little bit and to kind of walk you through what's on screen, but nothing nothing that I can't explain, hopefully, in words. So what is Copilot? Let's start there. Copilot is essentially bringing generative AI to the operating system. All right. So what does that mean? If you're new to AI, if you haven't been following the news closely, let me try to break that down. Artificial intelligence isn't new. Let's start there. And technically, Gen AI isn't new either, right? We've been using AI in different sectors since the 80s, pretty prominently, even before that, right? But some entire business sectors have been running on AI for multiple decades. Even the definition of generative AI has changed a little bit. The way that we talk about it on the Everyday AI show with Gen AI is essentially giving everyday people like me and you access. It's the accessibility and the affordability to take basic non-machine learning inputs, so text inputs, and to be able to create something on the back end. So, right. So many of the Gen AI tools that we're all familiar with are probably tools like ChatGPT, like Bing Chat, like Google Bard, like Anthropic Cloud, like Midjourney, like Stable Diffusion, right? Like Runway. So these are all different Gen AI softwares and tools that you can essentially put in a text input and you can create unlimited possibilities on the back end. So that's kind of when we talk Gen AI, at least here on the show, that's kind of what we're referring to. So how does Microsoft Copilot change that? Well, it brings generative AI to the operating system, right? I'm not going to go off on my wild 45-minute tangent that I did last time about Microsoft Copilot and to tell you how huge that is, but it is enormous. Here's why. In all of these other instances that I just told you, I just rattled off, 6 or 7 very popular Gen AI tools, large language model systems. All of those are technically disjointed. They don't all talk to each other. Yes, I'm a huge fan of ChatGPT and plugins and, bringing in kind of, external apps, external softwares, but it's still very disjointed. I still have to log into all of those different systems. They can't talk to each other. Yes, Google Bard released extensions. They're not that good, to be honest. They don't work how you would want them to work. ChatGPT with plugins is amazing. Don't get me wrong, but there's still limitations. Bringing Microsoft Copilot, bringing generative AI to your desktop takes away so many of those limitations. All right. And I'm going to go slightly into hot take mode here, right? Because I want to talk about how I even opened up the show. It is going to change the way business gets done, right? We're going to start to see that tomorrow when they do some of these rollouts, right? So we talked about tomorrow. There are going to be, there's going to be some of these initial rollouts of Microsoft Copilot, but the bulk of kind of what most people are looking at and what I'm going to kind of be referencing today on the show is the November 1st release. Okay. So there's a difference. We're going to start to see some initial rollouts tomorrow on September 26th. But a lot of even what we're talking about today is going to be based on November 1st, right? And that is kind of the general availability release. That is when you start to get the Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is when all of these different systems start to talk to each other, right? So your Outlook with your email, your Microsoft Word, your Word documents, your Excel, your spreadsheets, Teams, so your internal communication, your chat, right? PowerPoint. This is when all of your different, essentially how you run business can all start to talk to each other. So that for enterprise customers is going to be available November 1st. It's $30 a month per user, I believe. Someone correct me if I'm wrong on that. But we are going to start to see tomorrow some of these initial rollouts, but not the whole Microsoft 365 Copilot suite. Okay, that's the biggest difference. All right, so I'm sure we'll be talking on the show tomorrow and later this week about some of the initial Copilots. But I wanted to take a bigger picture look at what's going on. And I want to zoom out a little bit, okay? Because I already went through my hot take, but I want to talk to everyone about what this means. And I want to get your questions too, okay? So you might be saying, all right, Jordan, how does this change the way we work? How does this change the way business gets done, right? I do think Microsoft Copilot, roast me in the comments, fight me if you want. I think this is going to be far more impactful for how we work than even ChatGPT, right? Like if you're a generative AI fan, enthusiast, aficionado, whatever you want to call yourself, you probably look at the release of ChatGPT in November 2022 as almost like a milestone, right? When we look at I think the November 1st release of Microsoft Copilot, and then we compare it to the quote unquote ChatGPT craze, the two will not be comparable. Okay. November 1st with the full rollout of Microsoft Copilot 365. And again, this show isn't sponsored. Microsoft isn't paying me, but Microsoft, holler at me if you want to get that done. But this is going to change the way we all work. Okay. Even if you're not using Microsoft 365 Copilot. And let me explain. Okay. So my actual full-time job is a seller and agency. We work with small, medium-sized clients, helping them create digital strategies and implement those, right? So we've worked with from smaller, 10 employee companies to companies that have hundreds of employees. Okay. And this is why Microsoft Copilot is going to change the way business gets done, even if you or your business is not on Microsoft or you're not using Windows 11. Because here's the thing. It's changing the competitive landscape. All right. So maybe you and your team is on Mac. You're an Apple team. That's the team I'm on right now, but I'm going to be going to both teams here pretty soon. But here's the thing. Yes, we know Apple is working on their Ajax, their Apple GPT, whatever you want to call it. So they're creating their own large language models. We don't know what it is, when it's going to be released, right? So yeah, you might be saying, all right, Jordan, well, yeah, so many creative teams, so many, big agencies, ever like all those types of companies use Mac and they drive marketing, they drive advertising, they drive communications. Okay, sure. But not all of them. The companies who are instantly taking advantage of Microsoft Copilot are going to have a huge competitive advantage. To have generative AI in your actual operating system changes how you work. And if your competitors are taking advantage of Microsoft Copilot and you aren't originally, right? You are at such an extreme competitive advantage. And I'm not making that up, y'all. I have taught technically thousands, but one-on-one, I've taught hundreds of people, through our free Prime Prompt Polish PPP course. Drop PPP in the comments if you want access. Through that, we done other trainings, we do other episodes where we walk people through all these different Gen AI systems. And again, yes, they're all amazing in their own regard. But Microsoft Copilot is bringing all of these things together. And to be able to have all these different systems talk to each other, y'all, I have 2 journalism degrees, but I can't even think of a word that's more impactful than game changer. That is the word I am looking for, right? I can't even find the words. Very rarely do I not have the words. All right. So with that, let's talk a little bit more about what Microsoft 365 Copilot even is and what it does. All right. And I want to make sure also I get to everyone's questions here, comments. All right. So apologies for some reason today. My comments aren't pulling up here on the screen. So I apologize about that. I know they were just pulling up. They're no longer pulling up. So I'm sorry about that, y'all. I'm gonna actually bring up. We'll see how good I am here with freestyling. I'm gonna try to look on another monitor, see if I can't get to your questions as well, but I won't be able to pull them up. All right. So first, let's talk about what Microsoft 365 Copilot even is. Okay. Because that's incredibly important to understand the basics. All right. So again, I'm showing my screen. This is a long blog post. We'll have this in the newsletter. So make sure you go sign up at youreverydayai.com. Okay. So a couple things to keep in mind. You have Microsoft 365 Copilot, right? And it essentially combines a large language model on top of all of your data. Okay. And you'll see here, we have a little chart that's kind of showing the difference between Microsoft Copilot, Bing Chat Enterprise, and then Microsoft 365 Copilot. There's actually a lot of different offerings because even Bing Chat Enterprise is different, obviously, than OpenAI's ChatGPT Enterprise. Different products. They share the same technology. They're obviously very different. But even within kind of the Microsoft Copilot setup, you have regular Microsoft Copilot. Okay. You have Bing Chat Enterprise. And then you have Microsoft 365 Copilot. And the biggest difference, so Microsoft Copilot, that's what we're going to see the initial roll out starting September 26th tomorrow. And then Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is, that's when you start to bring in all the different apps, okay? The enterprise security, privacy, compliance, Microsoft 365 chat. Those things are not going to be available tomorrow on the 26th, right? Those are going to be available starting November 1st, the initial rollout to paid customers, and it's going to be $30 a month. Okay. So those are a pretty basic overview. Okay. And now I'm going to scroll down here. This might actually be on a different, here we go. So I want to talk a little bit about the power of being able to use a large language model on top of your data in the apps where you already work. Okay. So if you're joining us from the podcast, don't worry. I'm going to try my best to explain this. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see, right? But you can be working in Microsoft Word, as an example, what we have going on here in this screen share. And you can talk with Copilot inside your document, right? And you can not just give Microsoft Copilot access to what's in that document, but with Microsoft 365 Chat, you can ask questions about what's in your Outlook. You can ask questions about what's in that PowerPoint that someone sent and maybe you haven't read. What's in that Excel sheet, right? So you have access to the entire Microsoft 365 suite everywhere you go. Okay. You can kind of see it in this example where they're asking within Microsoft Office, within Microsoft Docs, Microsoft Word, they're talking with Copilot about the doc, but you can have all of your documents, all of your data. It is all going to be centralized, and all of these different apps are going to be able to talk to each other. All right. I hope that's good for the basic screen sharing there. So that is why, it's a very small example why. How we all work is going to change. All right. And let me even tell you about a little bit of the product updates. I don't think I need to go too deep into this. But again, Microsoft 365 Copilot is going to bring all of your apps together. Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Teams, and Microsoft 365 Chat. So Microsoft 365 Chat is essentially, think of it as a Teams chat, but you'll be able to chat with all of your documents. So I think people are actually going to use this a lot. So think of, if you're normally chatting with people in Microsoft Teams or Slack or Discord or whatever, you now have, your entire company's data, all of your personal work projects, every single, Excel attachment, PowerPoint document that you've worked on, everything is in one spot and you can talk to it. Hey, what's in this 100-page PowerPoint that I haven't read yet, that I haven't looked at? What's in this long email thread? Help me create an Excel sheet from all of the different data in this long email thread, right? That's the power of when all of your apps can talk to each other. Okay. We didn't even get into the hardware, which I think is pretty exciting, right? Because Microsoft also at their event on Thursday, when they announced the release date, they also announced, some hardware updates. Their new Surface laptop can run Meta's Llama large language model locally, right? Which that's wild. We can get into that another day. Like the power of being able to run a large language model locally. I'll have to devote a whole episode to that so we can go into depth and talk about what it means, right? But a couple other things, right? So yeah, we talked about the Microsoft 365 apps. It's going to bring all of these different, all of your data together. It's going to be wild. However, some other cool product updates that I think are worth mentioning, within Microsoft Photos, even Microsoft Paint, Microsoft Designer program. DALL-E 3 is coming to these programs, right? To Microsoft Designer, to Microsoft Paint, to Bing Image Creator. DALL-E 3 is the new image model from OpenAI that's going to be released here in a couple of, I think it's in about a month or so. So not only is Microsoft 365 and Copilot going to change how we all work, but even all of Microsoft's individual products and some of their more creative tools, which I'm especially excited about, they're getting like Photoshop-esque features inside, Designer and inside Microsoft Photo, right? You are getting Canva-esque features, right? In Microsoft Designer, but to be able to pull in DALL-E 3 into that equation and to then use some of these other tools to help run your business, to help run your creative, your advertising, your marketing, I think is going to be pretty remarkable. All right. So I'm sorry, I don't have all of your comments here. I'm looking on the other screen. I want to try to get to them. I'm not going to be able to pull them up, but let's try here. Let's try here. I want to make sure I can try to get to a couple of your questions. All right. So Douglas had a question. He said, when is your guess for how lessons from your PPP, your Prime Prompt Polish, will be applied with Copilot? Okay, great question, Doug. So if y'all haven't taken our Prime Prompt Polish course, you definitely should. Just type in PPP. I'll send you the information. And we actually have our pro class, which is free tomorrow and Wednesday. So check your email, because if you took our free PPP course, I emailed you about it. So Doug, good question. The PPP course essentially is teaching people how to properly use a large language model. And those lessons, right, because they are geared toward working inside ChatGPT, but those lessons can be applied universally, I think, right? Because so many people out there look at, ChatGPT or large language models as a shortcut, and they just want, the fastest way possible to get a result. So they're using these, copy and paste prompts. Again, for those of you that have taken the PPP course and you've applied it in your everyday life, November 1st, when November 1st comes out, and if your team, if your company is using this new enterprise offering, Microsoft 365, $30 a month per user, I think it's a steal, if I'm being honest. If you've gone through the PPP, you're going to be light years ahead of everyone else who hasn't, everyone else who's just been copying and pasting, because working with a large language model, even within Microsoft, their new Copilot offering and their, 365 chat, it's a skill set, right? It's like learning how to properly prompt a large language model, which is what we teach in the PPP course. That's a skill set. And so now when the rest of the business world is ready to sprint, and I do think Q4 is going to be very telling for the future of Gen AI, because I think you're going to have the companies that have prioritized generative AI in training in 2023. When Q4 hits and when Microsoft, 365 Copilot hits, those companies and those individuals are going to be so far ahead of everyone else. It's actually going to be, I think, November, December, January, you're going to see a lot of companies, 8-figure, 9-figure companies. They're going to be moving hard in one direction. They're either going to be quickly falling behind, or they're going to be quickly sprinting ahead, because the competitive landscape, y'all, again, I can't emphasize this enough. We've all been playing by the same rules in work, more or less, for 30 years, right? Since we all got on the internet, about, I think I'm doing my math right. No, 20 some years, right? Since, the average business has been conducting business operations online. So the rules haven't changed for nearly a quarter of a century. The rules have started to change, but not completely. I think with this Copilot release, that is when the rules are actually going to change for the first time in 25 years. That is not an exaggeration. All right. Dr. Muthana can't bring up your comment here, but he's asking how many here would replace their ChatGPT subscription with Microsoft 365 Copilot. Thumbs up here if you would. That's a great point. I do believe that a lot of people who have been paying that $20 a month, right? And even companies that maybe have been paying for it for certain departments, individuals, people by themselves. Yes, I do think a lot of people who, are watching their costs, because I get it. If you have subscriptions to 4, 5, 15 different generative AI tools, um, I do think some of the bigger names out there are going to be losing. I think maybe even Midjourney, right? When you can bring Dolly 3 into the operating system. So yeah, I think Midjourney, might lose some subscribers in theory. I think ChatGPT in theory will. It's not going to be too devastating because they'll be going to Microsoft, which is a has a large ownership stake in ChatGPT. So it won't hurt ChatGPT in the long run, I don't think. But yeah, I think also what's going to be interesting is we've seen literally thousands of new startups over the last couple of months in the generative AI space. And it's actually changed. And I've got to get someone on the show to talk about this a little bit more, but it's changed the entire like venture capital landscape. It's changed the startup landscape, because I think in 2022, VCs were just throwing all of their money in early 2023 as well at any company that said generative AI, this large language model, that take my money, take our money, right? Anthropic is obviously in a league of its own, but $4 billion investment is wild, right? But you've had thousands of startup companies that some of them don't even have fully finished products yet. And they've raised tens of millions of dollars. And then when you see Microsoft Copilot come out, it is going to, I think, render so many of those startups useless. Don't get me wrong. I still think there's plenty of room for competition, for, new products, new innovation in the generative AI space. So, if you're the founder of a SaaS that uses AI, I don't want that to deter you, but I do think that Microsoft 365 Copilot is going to make so many of these early age young startups. It's going to make their software obsolete, not needed, because not only will you be able to have a better offering, probably within Microsoft 365 Copilot, but the ability to talk to other apps and to share that data across your operating system, I think is more important than the most powerful tool or the most robust in terms of features new generative AI product out there. It doesn't matter if it's in a silo, right? And I'm going to start to wrap up the show like this. I'm sorry I couldn't get to more of your questions live here on the show. Sorry about the little bug, but I will get to them in the comments. So I'll reply when I get off this stream. But I'm going to end with this and kind of transitioning from that, right? Think right now, if you are someone that has greatly benefited from using all of these generative AI tools, right? Like we just talked about all the great features that are coming out with ChatGPT. And if you missed that, these features were just released minutes before we went live. So, the multimodal that they're going to be rolling out over the next 2 weeks, being able to talk to ChatGPT, have it talk back to you. So being able to communicate with voice and audio instead of text, being able to communicate with a photo, right? Like that's amazing. But guess what? In the end, ChatGPT, as much as I love it and use it, I use it for hours every day, it is still in a silo. So many of these generative AI tools that we're using, they're great, they're powerful, they're robust, they're giving us new capabilities with how we work, but none of them so far have come close to changing the definition of work, especially knowledge work, right? Those of us that are working in front of a computer in a knowledge base, in a knowledge-based capacity, which is so many of us, right? No generative AI tool so far has come or in my opinion, until we see what Apple's been cooking up, right? I do expect something big whenever they release something, which might be in 2024, might be in 2025. We don't know yet. Reportedly, it's 2024. But until that happens, I think all of this generative AI movement and this huge wave that we think has been so impactful to how we work, it is nothing compared to what happens when all of this becomes available in the operating system. It is going to change the way we work. It is going to change how business gets done. And it is going to change the very definition of work. All right. Thank you again for joining. We're going to have a lot more, right? Couldn't get to everything. Couldn't get to everything in this episode. I'm going to get to your comments. Don't worry. But there's a lot more to that we're going to give you here in the newsletter. So make sure, if you haven't already, go to youreverydayai.com. It'll be in the show notes. Don't worry. It's simple. Youreverydayai.com. If you want to know more about what we just talked about, there's a lot more information. Make sure you go sign up. Every single day, we break down not just the news of the day, but we always have an episode too. And most days, every day this week, except today, we have a guest, and we always go into great depth and detail on that topic that we couldn't get to in the live stream. So if you learn something in the live stream, or if you learn something in the podcast, that's only half the battle. You have to leverage it, and you have to go make it work for you. And that's what the newsletter is all about. So make sure you go subscribe at youreverydayai.com, and make sure you come back this week for more Everyday AI. Thanks, y'all.